Welcome back, everybody, to the daily racing show here at RacePlazaMedia. Today is Monday, so we'll be talking about everything that we watched racing related this past weekend.
Yes.
Which is unfortunately not that much, but maybe it's also good. It gives us like a weekend to recharge our batteries, because I think last weekend was a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was also a lot more on the schedule last week, and then next week is going to be a lot on the schedule again. So I'm excited, but yeah, I agree. It was nice to have a little bit less of a hectic racing schedule. I mean, there's just so much there was so much to watch last weekend, so this weekend it was a little bit less. We did miss one of the big races.
The Sebring you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. There was a 24-hour Sebring race.
12-hour.
What did I say?
24.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. I meant a 12-hour Sebring race, which I peeked in twice, but I don't think it was enough really to talk about it.
Yeah, I kept seeing updates for it, like, at 8 hours, I think like BMW was in the lead and stuff like that. And I do believe the McLaren ended up winning.
Oh, interesting. In which of the categories?
In the hypercar category. I think the LMP2s, I don't know. I've never verified it, but because it started out while I was at work and then we ended up watching AMA, it's just like, unfortunately didn't fit into the schedule.
Correct. Yeah, the only thing I kept checking in on was, of course, the Iron Dames, because we love the Iron Dames. Unfortunately, they had to bow out earlier in the race because they had a technical issue right at the beginning after clashing with another team, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, so we're not going to dwell on that because we didn't watch it, so we don't have much to share about it. But the two things we watched, of course, AMA Supercross.
Well, that's what I watched, but you also watched something exciting this past weekend, so tell us all about it.
All right, perfect. So I've been so excited to tell you. I watched it. Saturday morning was the Formula E race in Sao Paulo. It's the first time that I watched a Formula E race. You haven't seen a Formula E race yet? Not a full race?
Not a live one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think I might have watched one before, but it was like a replay.
Oh, okay, got it. So, well, I knew a little bit about it because, of course, we've made a video about it earlier. And I watched the full unplugged season of Formula E, which is their Drive to Survive, essentially, which I watched prior to getting into Formula E now. So I had some familiarity with, of course, the rules, and some of the drivers seemed familiar. So I was excited going into it. I had tried previously watching it, remember, but I made a mistake with the time, and then the replay wasn't available on Roku immediately, which caused a little bit of frustration. However, this time I put it on my calendar, I set a reminder, and it was available on Roku this time again, which is nice because it is for free, but I would love for it to also be available on F1 TV, just so it's
I understand
there.
why it's not, because it's not anything to do with F1, right?
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
of course.
ABB or something like that. I don't know. I just wish it would be, like we've talked about this a couple times now on the channel, I wish it would just be in one place and consistently there, and that we would already know where to watch.
Exactly.
You know? Because they kind of released this as it goes on, and I think that is a terrible way of managing it. Like, why are you not telling your fans where to watch it, or new people? And for me, like, if I would be going into the series, right, and I don't even know when I could watch it, I'd be like, okay, I guess this is not my destiny.
Yeah, that is very true, very true.
Anyways, but tell us about the race, because apparently it was wild.
Oh my gosh, yes. So it started off a little bit slower. The start was nice. I mean, there was no crash or anything at the beginning, which is always nice, of course, for the drivers, that nobody DNFs right out of the gate. It lacked a little bit of was a little bit conflicted at the beginning. So there was a lot of on-track action, but it wasn't super exciting. So the pack was really close together. There are 22 drivers on the track. They're pretty much stick together right from the beginning, which is exciting because they're so incredibly close. There's a lot of position switching, but from what I've gathered also from the commentators, at the beginning it doesn't matter quite as much who's leading yet, because the ending is what really determines it, because everybody's a little bit more on reserve. They're trying to save their battery. Of course, there's strategy going into it because you have the attack mode.
There's also no mandatory pit, is that correct?
Correct. There's no pitting, essentially.
No mandatory pitting.
Exactly, yes. There was 2 people that went into pits because of issues, but not because you have to change tires or anything. But you have the attack mode, which was interesting to see, because I had heard about it or read about it, so I knew theoretically how it worked, but I had not seen it, so it was nice to see. So they don't have DRS, they have the attack mode where they get extra 50 kilowatts power,
like boost, yeah,
exactly, for a total of 8 minutes during the race, which they can divide up into 2 stints.
Okay.
So they can do like 2 and 6 or 4 and 4, whatever they want. So that was kind of interesting to see when people used it, because there was also 2 safety cars during the race, which is okay. So going in, it was only supposed to be a 31 lap race.
So it's 45 minutes plus 1, or do they go by laps?
It was by laps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was 31 laps originally, but because of the 2 safety cars, they ended up adding 3 more laps at the end. So at the end, it was 34 laps in total.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting too, which I didn't realize going into it. So that was interesting. Then, of course, using the attack mode was interesting when people decided to activate it.
It definitely adds like a strategic component.
Very much so, because when they activated, you have to go out of the racing line,
they have
of
to
course.
go through the activation mode.
Exactly, yeah, to the activation zone.
It's like if you ever played, like, I think it's like Extreme G Racing, or like any of those like Nintendo, like what is it, like what is Z Fighter? Not Z Fighter. It's like those like floating airships, and then you have to go through the stripe on the side to fuel up or get your boost in. That's how I always envision it, because they always have like that CGI in for the attack mode. That's how
exactly, which was kind of cool to see. But it was also, of course, they lose a couple of spots when they go onto the attack mode strip, just because they're so close together. So immediately they lose like 3 spots. So it's really about strategy and figuring out when in the race is smart to use it. And then also, if you activate it and then during your activation time there's a safety car, it sucks for you, because you can't change it. You don't save it again.
So
you just lose it.
So when you activate the attack mode, right, you can then cancel it. So you input it ahead of the race, how it'll be.
Well, I guess the engineers input like how much time you want to activate it for that stint.
Okay, yeah, that's a bummer.
So yeah, so there's a lot of strategizing going into it, when to use the attack things. Also the battery, which I thought was so interesting. So I was looking, they show the battery level of the cars throughout the race, which I thought was really cool. So at like lap 23, which is, at that point, it was less than 10 laps before ending, they still had like 40% battery left. Some of them, because they really save it to the end to really make some charges and things. And that's literally what happened. So because of the safety cars, Sam Bird, the McLaren driver, was leading majority of the race, which he was not happy about, because apparently leading the race makes it difficult for you to manage your energy levels. So it's a little bit more tricky. So you want to drive behind.
You're the one setting the pace and not following someone?
I guess so. And then also, I don't know if it has also to do with because they're not in a slipstream, because they're literally so close behind each other. So that was really interesting. You could hear him complain over the radio about it.
Was he like wishing someone would overtake, or what was he saying?
Yeah, he was just like, he wished somebody was overtaking. And then also there's some like speed rules, which I didn't quite understand, of how much space they have to have behind him to not get, I guess, maybe too much advantage of it. So he was complaining about that, to maybe get like penalties or some rules enforced, which I still have to look into, because I didn't quite understand that. But essentially, he was leading for majority of the race. And then Mitch Evans was behind him. He's the Jaguar driver. So it was him, Bird, Pascal Wehrlein in the Porsche. Those were like the main contenders for most of the race for third. Then eventually Jack Dennis came also into the mix. So he was fighting with Pascal Wehrlein for a while. He's a German driver for Porsche. So that was really interesting.
There's a lot of German drivers on the grid.
Yes, I have one more German driver to point out a little bit later, but I want to get to the finale first. So they ended up extending the race from 31 laps to 34 laps. So Evans eventually took over. So he was leading. Sam Bird was second. Jake Dennis and Pascal Wehrlein were still competing constantly back and forth for third place for the final podium spot. Then the last lap, I think it was the last corner, the last really opportunity, Sam Bird passed Mitch Evans on the outside because Mitch was defending on the inside. So he's like, this is my last opportunity.
I'm like, go for it.
Yeah, he passed him. Then he was able to like just push the last bit of energy out of the car and made it and won his first race in 36 races because he's the second oldest Formula E winner ever in this now 10th season.
That's awesome.
I know. I was really happy for him because also during the Unplugged show where he was of course also featured because he's been in Formula E for so long, he was talking about how he's not had like wins in a long time, and so it was really nice to see, and he was
I mean, I'm
so,
sure it wears
so
on you.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing, not to bring up F1, but like I guarantee you it wears on Lando that Oscar got his win, even if it's just a sprint, right? Like you can't tell me if you're always this close and all your peers are getting there, all of them made it to the top step, and you're not. I'm sure that like that wears on you.
Yeah, I agree. But so it was really nice to see him.
That's awesome, yeah.
But then, so because we watched the action of 1 and 2 so intently, we missed that the person who was originally in 5th place snuck by Verline and Jake Dennis to end up taking the 3rd place on the podium. Also in the last turn, Roland is his name with Nissan.
You know what that is? That's some Pierce Brown energy.
Yes, Pierce Brown AMA Supercross energy, 1000%. But it was just so cool to see because I had not seen him. He was not like in the talks throughout the race really, and then suddenly he just like, because they were busy with each other, he snuck past them. They were almost 3 cars wide going into like the final stretch, and then he took the podium, which was so cool. So there was a lot of excitement at the end, but you did, I feel like, had to wait for the end to really, for things to pop off, because luckily, of course, nobody was injured. There was one crash into the wall because somebody front wing got stuck under the car, or not got stuck under, but went under the car, which kind of messed with the steering and the braking, so he went right into the wall. So that was not great, but fortunately there was no other like big incidences, but it was really exciting. At the end, I was up on my feet, I was yelling because it was like so much excitement at the end.
That's why we got the noise complaint. You know, when I think about Formula E, the one thing I always think about also is that they're much rougher. They're much more like elbows out.
Yes.
Than I feel like other races I've seen. I mean, in AMA Supercross also, but I'm talking specifically like open wheel
or single seaters.
Racing. They're like, I'm gonna make my room, you know.
Exactly. That's why I was expecting just a little bit more action. I mean, there was a lot of taking over, switching positions. You had no idea how things were gonna end. But yeah, I definitely expected maybe more crashes. Because I also have to say the cars look very interesting. Like they do look like a typical single-seater, but they're also a little bit more boxy. They have a little bit more surface.
Especially now the newer edition, right?
Exactly, the Gen 3 currently. But then I was also thinking, as I was watching it, I think it would be even cooler at night. Because they have those like LED blue lights.
Is there a night race?
That's what I meant to look up. I didn't look it up right now, but I think that would be really cool, especially if most of those races are at night, because they're all really colorful. You have the lights on them. I kind of imagine it like the bright colors that we saw at the Daytona 24-hour, the Rolex 24 on iRacing.
Yes, and like iRacing. Yes, I was like,
because they're so like colorful and bright, and so I think that would be really cool.
Was it one? No, it was the real life one.
Well, it was both.
The real life one.
Yeah, it was the iRacing first,
not the iRacing,
and then the real one.
Yeah, the real ones.
So I thought that was one of the things. I was like, oh, I wish it was night because I think it would just look cooler.
Especially because it's a lot of them are street tracks or street circuits, so you have also the lights of the city. And
exactly.
Depending on the city, it could look really cool.
But it was one of the things. Also, I thought it was very clearly a street track. I mean, obviously you see that it's on the street, but it's also, there was very little runoff area. It seemed extremely crowded. Like, yes, there are 22 cars. Yes, there are a little bit bigger cars, but it still felt like a lot, you know?
Okay, you might not know the answer to this, right? But do you know if there is a size difference between Gen 2 and Gen 3 cars?
I think there is, or I'm pretty sure there is, but I don't remember like the details and in what area, because I know there's a weight and a size difference.
I'm just wondering if they're like, we're getting, not that this is the case, but are we getting to a point where like the cars are outgrowing the tracks, right?
Interesting. Just like F1 essentially with like Monaco, like their cars are too big.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Because the good thing is kind of also with Formula E, right? You don't, even though a lot of them are in the city, and I think maybe that's why maybe more cities are also okay with it, is you don't really have the noise pollution that you get from like gasoline cars. I know a lot of people don't like the sound, but I understand why it maybe makes it a little bit more popular in cities, in big cities, because you don't have this like overwhelming sound. Like in Berlin or something like that, it's a bustling city, right? It's already quite loud.
I mean, they were in the middle of Sao Paulo, so
same thing, right?
Completely agree. And that's what was one of the things I was thinking about too. One, for a night race, I think the sound would be, I don't know how loud it is, but it kind of reminded me of like Tron, like the sounds of those vehicles. That's why I think at night would be really fun with lights and stuff like that. But I do agree, like the sound is definitely something to get used to, because it is like almost like a whistling, high-pitched whistling kind of sound. But also we watched was it like Formula 3 and Formula 2, it also sounds more like,
well, Formula
whistling.
2 now has the sound, this they didn't realize that with the new cars, because they all have new cars this year, right? And that now I think it's the DRS or something like that causes that actual whistling sound. I don't think the previous generations did that.
Interesting. Okay.
But so I guess I think that could help, but once again, I said that in a different video. I'm excited for them to more and more race on actual tracks.
Agreed.
You know, then you also have maybe cars that, you know, go off track but don't automatically DNF because they take damage because there is a runoff area. So I think I'm excited to see what is in store for Formula E. I really want to watch my first live race too, obviously.
I agree. I think there's things happening for it, because I mean there were a lot of people there. There was also like Bernie Ecclestone was there, which is obviously of course a huge name in racing. Emerson Fittipaldi was there. He was the one that gave out one of the trophies. His brother had passed away earlier this week, and then they're of course a big racing family. Fittipaldi.
His brother?
I think it was his brother.
No, his uncle.
Or his uncle, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it was his uncle, but he passed away like 2 or 3 weeks ago, because that happened after his F2 win, remember?
Oh.
Before his F2
win, but
sorry.
It was, this Emerson Fittipaldi is older.
Oh.
Yeah, he's like a 2-time F1 champion.
Oh.
So, I mean...
sorry. I thought it was the young dude. I was like...
No, I was like,
oh my God, another person passed away?
No. He's... Yeah. He's... So, I had a little issue with the time. Yeah, I thought it was more recent. But yeah, it was
but still, okay, yeah. It's a senior essentially.
Like it's one of the seniors. I mean, it sounds like a big, very successful racing family.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he was there, which was also nice, and it seemed like it meant a lot to a lot of the drivers, of course, too.
Yeah, because like 2 times F1 champion.
And then what I also thought was really funny, so at the end because you know how in Vegas also the drivers get into a car to be driven to wherever the podium ceremony is.
It's like the parade, the driver's parade?
No, it wasn't even, I mean...
Afterwards, wasn't it really awkward with Charles?
Yes, exactly.
They were like all squished in the tiny guy.
So this one, they had 2 people in the back and 1 person in the front, so they didn't all sit in the back seat. But what I thought was very funny was that Felipe Massa was driving them to the podium. He was their driver.
Wait a minute. Okay, now this is exciting, but isn't that also where the drama is? Isn't he suing FIA and Ecclestone?
I don't know. But I thought it was really cool, and I also loved seeing, because they show, of course, the insight. You know how in F1 after the race they go into that room where they kind of debrief with each other, the drivers. So they did that in the car, but they also had conversations with Felipe explaining how things were, and he was asking them. So that was really cool to see as well. So I enjoyed that little. I felt like it was like an Easter egg almost, because I'm not sure if everybody would recognize Felipe Massa. But
yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know either. But so I thought that was really cool. So one last thing that I want to What?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's just the last thing I wanted to point out, because you mentioned German drivers. So there was one more German driver that I want to point out. So Maximilian Günther is his name. And then he started...
Real German name.
I know, right? So he had started in last position due to a penalty. I don't remember off the top of my head what the penalty was for, but he started in 22nd place, the last person on the grid. And he ended in 9th.
That's actually really, really great.
That's really, really impressive. So I'm excited to see him. Hopefully I get to watch the next race as well to see. Hopefully he starts not all the way at the end. But I think regardless, it's still a huge achievement to make it through 12 people, or almost 12-ish people on the grid.
I will also say is like for anyone that's listening to this and who might be interested in Formula E, but who's like, oh, I watch a lot of Formula 1 and stuff like that. The Formula E season is much shorter.
Yes.
So it's a much less of a commitment than a Formula 1. So,
yes.
So definitely go in and check it out.
Definitely. And I mean, also the races are shorter. So it's also just like a nice bite size. It's not too much of a commitment.
Yeah.
So I highly, now that I've seen it, I definitely recommend watching it.
Checking it out. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So that's everything I wanted to tell you about Formula E. So do you want to jump into Amy Supercross?
Yes, let's do it. So this time they were in Indianapolis. It was again a Triple Crown event.
Yes, for the East Coast boys.
For the East Coast boys. So that means the new driver that I was talking about in the racing news will be back. So I think next time they will be in Seattle.
Yeah, yes.
And that's when the new driver will be joining the 250 SX.
Because our West Coast boys weren't back yet. We got a little bit overexcited.
Dude, I'm so excited to see those guys.
Yeah.
But I will say the Triple Crown event was really awesome. We unfortunately did miss the very first race for the 250 SX.
Yes, because we honestly didn't realize it was a Triple Crown.
Yeah,
we thought, maybe we'll miss the first heat, but we unfortunately missed the first race.
Yes. So the first race went to McAdoo. He ended up winning it. Hayden Deegan came second, and then Vial came third.
Yes.
And so we can't really talk about that. But then we watched the fourth. Wait, let's just talk about 250.
Let's just finish about 250.
Because when you watch it, they do a 1-1-1.
Well, first of all, I want to say, and I had read about it previously, but Cody Schock was already back.
Yes.
I mean, I thought it was absolute insanity. We talked about it that he had a hairline fracture originally in his collarbone. Then and then the incident with Hayden Deegan ended up completely breaking it.
Yes.
And then so he had surgery this week and immediately came back. And
we
very
both
much
talked about
it. Yeah.
We both talked about it, that we both feel a little conflicted about it. We both feel like we're hoping that he is making the right decision together with his team and his medical, or medical team, his doctor, because having a surgery and then immediately jumping back onto the bike, especially because it's not like, first of all, he won't take it easy, because then why would he even? He's not gonna be like, I'm gonna chill, and it is very intensive on the shoulders and stuff like that, right? Because you're constantly absorbing the shock when you're landing.
Oh yeah, there's no taking it easy.
And then he did ended up having, in the third race, he had a tumble. He fell. So I don't know, it's just it's just a little concerning. I mean, hope that he's not going to face any repercussions later on in his life or something like that. It's just, I know that they're all fighting for the championship and stuff like that. It just seemed very, very early or soon to be back.
I agree. I just hope that it doesn't have any repercussions for him long term as well, that it doesn't affect him, that his healing didn't get affected, because of course we're rooting for him. So he ended up placing 5th in the first race and then 8th in this second and third.
Yes, and I just lied. I want to stand corrected. Vial came 4th in the first race.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not 3rd. Sorry,
yes.
I was under the impression he came 3rd twice, but no, it was 4-3-1.
Gotcha.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. It's fine. And then, I mean, we already talked about Cameron McAdoo. He placed 1st in the first one, 2nd in the second, and then 3rd in the
He did 1,
third.
2, 3.
Yes. The third one really, I thought, was the most interesting, the third race.
Yes.
Just because there was a lot of who's going to place where in terms of points for the overall Triple Crown.
Yes.
Because did you want to say something about a second race?
I wanted to say, because I thought people or the commentator were saying like so the second race was won by Hayden Deegan, and I think we can all agree that was probably his most dominant performance the whole season. Commentators were also saying like this is what they were expecting of him and stuff like that. But it is then also quite unfortunate that then in the third race, the reason why there was actually so much excitement throughout the race was actually by a mistake that he caused himself that ended up causing him to lose that event.
Exactly.
Because if he didn't make that mistake, he, I think, would have probably had a chance of winning it. It would have definitely come down between him and McAdoo, I would say.
Correct, yeah.
But in the very beginning, right out of the gates, for the third race, he ended up hitting one of those blocks on the side.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get that it was tight, but I believe, if I remember the replay correctly, there was enough room for him to avoid it. So it was just a mistake that happens. But he ended up then taking down a bunch of people.
Yeah.
There was like a bunch of people that went down.
Immediately, especially at the start, it's such a domino effect because they're so crowded. All these 20 drivers trying to make it around this tiny little corner. So which makes the start, of course, always very interesting. But yeah, it was definitely unfortunate and hurt his race. He did make up a bunch of spots.
He did make,
So that's why it was so interesting, because he was making up spots and Cameron was losing some spots. So it was all about like math, figuring out like, well, what position does McAdoo need to make it to still win the Triple Crown versus what does Hayden Deegan need to make second,
and then
third, or winning
Vial
it.
was in there schmoozing and trying to get it, because I think if McAdoo would have placed fourth, then Vial would have taken
it. Right.
And I will say though, I don't think Hayden Deegan, after the crash, I was like, he's not gonna make up enough spaces to win it, because I don't see him overtaking McAdoo. That's my thing. I'm like, I think McAdoo is probably like, just bring it home.
Yes.
You know, of course, like ideally, like if he can win it, he can win it, right? But then I think Tom had a really great last race, and he just kind of took off, and he was like doing his own thing. And then I think he was like, okay, let me just defend my third place position and bring it home. And I would have been incredibly surprised if Hayden would have been able to make up that many spaces. I mean, he ended up coming sixth in the last one, and he made up, but I would have been very, very surprised if he would have made up so many that he would have taken it home.
That's true. I mean, it was still a really nice performance of his.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that McAdoo won.
Yes.
He seems also just like such a nice guy. And
he seems like a really great guy.
And we were talking about it too. He seems in such a great place. Like he's in this mindset that he's really enjoying all the races. He's living in the moment. He's trying not to get hung up on things and just like really enjoy, because he understands the immensely amazing opportunity he has to do this for a living, to ride. I mean, to live his dream job essentially, and also doing it successfully. So I'm just rooting for him, because I mean, we love an aware king.
Yes. Yeah, and he just seems like really grounded, and clearly he has also a really awesome family. They showed a couple weeks ago, they did a little bit more of a documentary.
Because it was military appreciation, and his sister was
she's in the Navy and stuff like that. So it's just, he seems like a really awesome cool guy. And I will also say I was happy to see that Tom was doing well.
Yes.
He ended up, sneaking in that one win, and he ended up coming second overall.
Yes.
In the Triple Crown event. And also, I thought it was really cool to hear that him and Chase Sexton seem to get along really well, and they've been training off when they're not, racing. They seem to be training together.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so maybe this is also like reflecting Tom's performance, because he's been obviously very dominant recently. He won the last two races, and then he came second in the Triple Crown event. So it's really cool to see, because obviously Chase is our current defending champion.
Correct, yeah.
Even though, he has been struggling a little bit more due to injury and stuff like that, but obviously you don't win the 450 SX championship if you're not very, very, very good.
Exactly, correct. Yeah.
So it's just really awesome to see. And before we move on to the 450 SX, so how's the standing now for the 250?
So right now, McAdoo now took over the lead from Tom, which is nice.
It's cool.
I'm
I like
rooting
it
for Tom as well. So, but it's only 2 points apart at the moment. So McAdoo with 98 points, then Tom Viala at 96 points. What do you have to say?
And who's little sneaky snack in third place?
Our beloved Pierce Brown. It's just absolutely incredible seeing him. I mean, he's
They
doing.
never talk about him.
No,
They never talk about him.
The ninja just sneaking in. He's always competing at the top-ish, not the top, but like what was his results? Oh, 12th, 4th, and 2nd for the races, which is the first one. I don't know if something happened because we didn't watch the first race, but I mean, he's Mr. Consistent. I mean, that's what can win you a championship.
And
I don't know.
That's how he's in third place.
Yeah. Or yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's great to see.
Yeah.
I love it. So and then
so he's 11 points off of the first place,
correct.
and between 1 and 2 there's 2 points.
So yeah. But yeah, I'm enjoying the East Coast boys as well. There's some drama there, of course. Also, we've seen a little bit more physical action, I feel like, on the east side, but I'm definitely stoked to go back to the West Coast next week.
2 things I wanted to mention. Jalik actually had a few really great starts, but then he made some mistakes. He fell off the bike, so his overall performance was he came 6th, 7th, and then 20th. However, he set for the very first time a Triumph bike led a full lap in 250 SX. So that's exciting.
That's
I know
win.
it's not a major deal, but it's still really cool and because he has a lot of potential.
Agreed.
And so I'm excited to see maybe also what Triumph can do with the bike next year, and hopefully it will be more competitive, and of course hopefully he will learn from his mistakes and really take them on and grow from them.
Yeah, I agree. And then also just to point out, he only made 20th because he didn't finish the race.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he went into the pits at one point, and then we
I
saw some
remember
interaction with him
upset.
and his mechanics, and he was quite frustrated, understandably so, that he couldn't finish the race. And then I forgot, we didn't talk about our other bestie.
Yes, I wanted to bring him up too. That's the second point.
So Max Anstey, our guy who we're rooting for. I'm sure you guys remember last week he couldn't finish the race that he was leading because there was some issues with the bike. It turned out it was an OEM part that just stopped working, which is not to the fault of his mechanics, his team, or anything.
It's like you're doing everything right, and then this happens, and there's nothing you could have done about it.
It's so heartbreaking. And I told you about it, and if you guys have seen it, we'll put a link for it in the comments or in the description below. But his team chef, his team owner, he posted like a video on the socials as well, just pointing out and emphasizing that, one, of course, they're a very small team, but that it was really not to the fault of any of his staff or mechanics or anybody. It was really just an OEM part that ish happens,
Yeah.
So unfortunately that happened to them, and it's just I feel like it's extra heartbreaking for like the little teams because they put in so much hard work amongst like so many or so little amounts of staff or personnel power. So it's just it's tough.
It is a heartbreaking. However, let's move on to something that is not so heartbreaking, which is the 450 SX. So let's get it right out of the way. This was a clean swipe.
All of the above.
All of the above by Jett Lawrence. He did 1-1-1. He got a total of 3 points and triple crown events. I'm so sorry. Are Olympic style, so so the least amount of points wins.
Yes.
So you got a total of 3 points throughout those 3 races, and he was incredibly dominant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, because our boy Kenny did really, really excellent too. He came in 2, 2, and 3.
Yes.
He led the first 2 races, both of them, right out of the gate. He had excellent starts, which we all know this season especially. He hasn't been that good in starts. He always had to make up the places.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's hit or miss. Either he has a great start or he's not, but he shows that he can make his way through it.
Yeah. So I feel like he always has to make up places. So this time he always was right off the gates. He was first place, but then Jett Lawrence is just incredibly dominant, and he also doesn't have a good bike. So
Ken.
Ken.
Yes.
So Ken didn't do anything wrong. Okay.
I
No,
mean,
but it's I mean, I would have loved for him to win it.
at least
Obviously,
just one of the races, also because apparently he had won last year in Indianapolis, so it would have been nice for him to bring it back, especially now that he has a little bit, I wouldn't call it a resurgence, but he's been having some successful races now.
And I also wanted to I I don't want Jett to just run away with it now.
Yes.
I'm looking at it in this way as also like we're a first timers watching this season. Like we've watched all the races and stuff like that. But and it's also kind of cool to see we see this rookie coming in and really living up to the expectations.
Yes.
I think he really has been.
I feel we even talked about it. He had a little dip at the beginning where people, of course, were immediately destroying him.
Yeah, they tend to be quite harsh on him.
Yes, very, very much so. But I feel like he's learned. He seems a lot more consistent now. He's not making those simple mistakes that he did at the beginning, which had cost him
I think there were
a podium.
Bad mistakes, because I think 2 or 3 times he gave up a win essentially by making a mistake.
Yes. But I meant like it's just like things that could have been avoided.
Yes.
And that's what he's not been doing. He's been focused and not making those mistakes. And once he's in the front, he just extends his lead. And I mean, it's cool to see as well, for sure. But I mean, our boy Ken also deserves it. I would love to, because we missed his era essentially, or his old era. I would love to see him again on a stronger bike. I would love for him to be given that opportunity. Yes, he's already older, so I'm sure the chances are smaller.
Yeah.
But I would love to see it, just because the Suzuki, from what we've heard, is not that competitive. And I mean, you can see it that he does lose time. Yeah. But I don't know if it's because of the bike or is it because of other things.
He's already getting older, and he's not as, he's not 20 like Jett and has maybe the energy and the strength or whatever. But the really exciting highlight that I thought was this weekend was also to see Chase back on the top. He came in 3-3-2. I was hoping that he would be able to catch Jett.
Yes.
But
at the last one.
In the last race. But he ended up coming in, 3-3-2. And it's very exciting to see him back in it. Hopefully the next race we'll see him. Maybe he can fight for a win again. Because, once again, we have some PTSD from F1 with Max Verstappen.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So we don't want this to be a Max Verstappen situation.
No, yeah.
So we wanted to stay more competitive.
Agreed. So it's nice to see that Chase definitely got his groove back slowly. But I'm also very happy for Jason Anderson. He did well this round. Yes. He was 5th, 6th, and then 5th again. So it was nice. And he did have quite some action with Cooper Webb and Aaron Plessinger. They were all kind of in a mix for those places. So that was nice to see that there's competition for the podium, but also for the points right behind it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I think we mentioned that last week too. I would like to see Aaron back on the top, because he had a really great start into the season, and now he kind of just not fizzled out, but he's in like
the lower
top 10
or higher top. I mean, towards like the back end of the top 10 a little bit more,
which is a bummer, because I don't know why. I don't know if there's something going on with the bike or something going on, but I would like for him to finish in higher places.
Yeah, at the same thing with, I feel like Eli Tomac this weekend, I didn't see him quite as much in the mix.
He did a 4, 7, and 10.
Exactly. So it's okay. But yeah, so it was, I don't know. I mean, it was still a lot of fun. And I don't envy those guys doing a triple crown. I mean, not that I drive a single crown event. But I think it just sounds so intense.
Yeah.
Like exhausting back to back 3 races a night plus qualifying earlier in the day and practice. And I mean, it just seems exhausting.
I don't know, but I think there are some drivers on the grid that don't actually like the Triple Crown event.
I mean, I wouldn't blame them. Yeah.
I saw something, but I didn't end up watching the video because I'm like, it'll be all right. I will say, though, even though Hunter Lawrence is injured, he was still participating. He came 10, 10, 12. I keep thinking that I hope that maybe in like 2 or 3 years, Hunter will find his groove and maybe he will be out there battling in the front too, because he's just so much in the shadow of his brother.
Yes.
Which is a little bit unfortunate. But like if we're looking point wise, like um, Jett has more than double the amount of points than Hunter.
Yeah. But then also, I mean, we also still need to consider that this is also Hunter's rookie season. Like, yes, it's Jett's rookie season. Like, whatever. But I mean, I feel like Hunter's results are, me as a noob, is like, it seems like a more realistic, if not a great result for it being his rookie season. I mean, he's competing up there with big names also. Like, yes, he's not necessarily podium contention, but he's competing for the points, you know? So I think it's really great to see. But yeah, it's a bummer definitely that he's a little bit in the shadow of his brother, or maybe he actually likes it because he doesn't have maybe as much pressure on him as Jett does.
Yeah. And then so if we're looking at the standing, so we have Jett Lawrence coming in at 210 points.
Yeah.
Cooper Webb 189 in second, and then Chase in third with 185, and then the boy Kenny with 175 in fourth, and then rounding up the top 5 is Eli Tomac with 174, so just a point behind our boy Kenny.
Yeah.
So it is getting a little bit further away, like it's stretching, the field is stretching out a little bit more, the championship standing. However, I am so excited to have the 250 SX guys back. We'll have Levi Kitchen,
Joe Shimoda.
And I think if I remember, their field was also much tighter.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very excited to see those guys back.
Yeah, same. I feel like we've missed them. It's been a couple of weeks now since we've seen them. So I'm excited to see also maybe things changed over the break. Have they maybe somebody done like big improvements?
Maybe Joe can get his starts.
Yes. So we'll see. But yeah, so let's talk about what's happening this upcoming weekend in the world of racing. So as we mentioned at the beginning, lots is going to be happening this weekend.
Much.
I mean, it's absolutely insane. Just a quick shout out in the description for all of our videos. You always find our most recent monthly racing calendar with like links to the series and also to streaming services, so you can find when and where you can watch them with as much information as we get. Some people are a little bit late at providing this information, so we have a couple gaps in there, but we usually try to provide at least links so you can find the most updated details for the different races.
And it also tells you on there whether or not you can watch it for free or if it's paid.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about it. So we have next weekend, of course, we have Formula 1, 2, and 3 coming back. They're heading to Melbourne.
Which is one of the few street tracks that I genuinely enjoy.
Yes. I mean, last year we've already made a video highlighting this. Last year Australia was absolutely wild.
It's like only half of the field finished.
Yes. I mean, they had 3 restarts, so it's crazy. So I'm curious to see. I mean, I don't have high expectations. I don't expect that to go down yet again, but I'm definitely curious about it.
Then we also have MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, and Moto E racing next week. So very, very awesome. There's an endurance race, the Hankook 12-hour... I don't know how to say that.
In Florence, Italy.
In Florence, Italy race, which I'm very, very excited about. I'm hoping I'll be able to watch some of that because it starts, I think, a little bit later. What time does it start?
I mean, it's at 2:30 our time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, perfect. Sorry. No, 2:30 Florence, Italy time, which is 9-hour time difference approximately to us.
Oh, so it's terrible for me because I'm at work.
But I mean, it's you can watch. I mean, it's going to be on YouTube, which is the great part. So they're streaming that on YouTube, and for free.
That's awesome.
There's also karting happening next weekend in Spain, so the karting season kicks off. We also have Superbike and the Australian Superbike Championship. There's NASCAR happening next weekend.
There's the IndyCar 1 Million Challenge.
Oh yes, that's happening here in California and Thermal at the track.
Oh my goodness.
I wish we wish we could go.
Let's see right here what we have. So there's the Stock Car Pro Series, which you can also watch for free on YouTube. Supercross, of course, we said multiple times now. NASCAR Mexico Series, next NASCAR Cup is coming back.
NASCAR Xfinity Series. So I mean, there's so much to watch. There's also the Motocross World Championship happening in Spain. This upcoming. I mean, if you don't have anything to do, there's lots of racing for you to watch, and also a good amount that's available for free. Not everything, but yeah.
But at least usually any of the paid services, if you've never watched it, so if you're like uncertain, hey, should I try MotoGP or should I try Superbike? Most of those have a trial, so you can at least check it out for one race and then make your decision. And once again, series like the MotoGP are included in the US currently for free in Max.
Yes.
So if you have a HBO Max
what
subscription,
a win.
you already get it.
Relieved.
Yeah, we get it fortunately with our internet provider, so it's very easy to watch.
Yes.
So yeah, check it out. Also, please let us know in the comments down below. First of all, what did you guys watch this past weekend? And what are you excited for this upcoming weekend? I'm very excited for everything. Everything.
Like, if we list what we're excited for, we're going to list everything
it's gonna
we
be
just
another
named
30
again.
minutes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm super excited. Lots and lots of awesome racing coming up. And I think that would be it for today's video. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we will be seeing you guys here tomorrow at the Daily Racing Show. Yeah, I think my arm popped twice by stretching out like that. Yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we'll be seeing you guys here tomorrow at the Daily Racing Show. Look, for the way.
Bye-bye.
Don't call HR.